From the early 1900s to today, mass deportations have left a lasting mark on America's history. Let's dive into the timelines and reasons behind these pivotal and often controversial events. In 1924, the Immigration Act imposed strict quotas, shaping who could enter and stay in America. The 1930s saw the Mexican Repatriation, where over 1 million people, many U.S. citizens, were forcibly sent to Mexico. Then came Operation Wetback in 1954, a controversial program targeting undocumented Mexican immigrants. In 1986, the Immigration Reform and Control Act attempted to balance stricter enforcement with amnesty for millions. Post-9/11 policies intensified deportations, redefining national security and immigration enforcement. Each chapter reveals a deep impact on communities and the nation's evolving identity. Let's jump into these timelines. Let's travel back to the early 20th century, a time when America's identity was shifting and immigration policies were taking a hard turn. At the heart of this era was the Immigration Act of 1924. Known as the Johnson-Reed Act, it introduced strict quotas, effectively slashing immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe. The U.S. government labels certain groups as undesirable, setting the stage for mass deportations and aggressive enforcement. Economically, the post-World War I period brought uncertainty. High unemployment and labor unrest fed a narrative that immigrants were stealing jobs from American workers. Employers exploited this tension, pitting immigrant laborers against native-born workers. In industries like agriculture and manufacturing, immigrants became scapegoats for broader economic struggles. This led to raids targeting undocumented immigrants, with authorities conducting mass deportations. The Great Depression, which began in 1929, had a significant impact on American society, leading to a surge in mass deportations. As the economy crumbled, unemployment rates skyrocketed, and many Americans faced dire financial hardships. In this climate of desperation, anti-immigrant sentiment intensified, with many blaming immigrants for taking jobs away from native-born citizens. Economic factors such as rising unemployment and dwindling resources fueled a narrative that immigrants were a burden on the struggling economy, leading to increased calls for their removal. One of the most significant aspects of this period was the repatriation campaigns targeting Mexican immigrants. This period is known as Mexican Repatriation. Despite many of these individuals being U.S. citizens or legal residents, they were often swept up in the wave of deportations. Local and federal governments, driven by the belief that removing Mexican immigrants would free up jobs for Americans, initiated campaigns that forcibly repatriated hundreds of thousands of people to Mexico. These actions were often carried out with little regard for the individual's legal status or personal circumstances. Estimates suggest that 355,000 to 1.8 million Mexicans were deported, with many being U.S. citizens. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, fear and suspicion swept the nation, leading to Executive Order 9066, a decision that forcibly relocated approximately 120,000 Japanese Americans, the majority of whom were U.S. citizens. Families were uprooted, homes and businesses lost, and lives shattered as they were confined to desolate internment camps. In the 1950s, the United States faced rising tensions over undocumented immigration, particularly from Mexico. This culminated in a controversial government initiative known as Operation Wetback. Launched in 1954 under the Eisenhower administration, this program aimed to curb illegal immigration by deporting Mexican laborers who had entered the country without authorization. Led by the Immigration and Naturalization Service, Operation Wetback began with a massive crackdown in border states like Texas and California. Armed agents conducted raids on farms, factories, and neighborhoods, often relying on racial profiling to identify targets. Over the course of the operation, an estimated 1.3 million people were forcibly removed from the United States. Following the implementation of IRCA, there was a notable increase in deportations. The act included provisions to strengthen border enforcement and penalize employers who hired undocumented workers. As a result, the government ramped up its efforts to identify and deport individuals who did not comply with the new regulations. This led to a climate of fear within immigrant communities, as many faced the threat of removal despite having lived in the U.S. for years. The 21st century has witnessed a profound transformation in U.S. deportation practices, driven by shifting national priorities and global events. The September 11, 2001 attacks marked a turning point as national security concerns took center stage. This led to the creation of the Department of Homeland Security in 2003, merging multiple agencies under a single umbrella to bolster security and streamline immigration enforcement. This restructuring fundamentally changed how immigration laws were enforced, prioritizing deportation as a cornerstone of national security. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, a division of DHS, became the primary agency for implementing these policies. With significant increases in funding and resources, Immigration and Customs Enforcement adopted aggressive tactics, such as workplace raids, detention center expansions, and partnerships with local law enforcement through programs like 287G. These measures dramatically increased deportation rates, peaking in the late 2000s and early 2010s. However, this enforcement surge also sparked widespread fear in immigrant communities, as individuals faced detention and removal, often without warning. Policies like the zero-tolerance approach introduced in 2018 amplified these challenges. Under this policy, families apprehended at the border were systematically separated, drawing widespread condemnation and highlighting the human costs of enforcement-focused strategies. As we reflect on the consequences of mass deportations, it is essential to consider how these practices continue to affect immigrant communities today. If you found this video informative and thought-provoking, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel for more content. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video.